I'm going to work on another Clovis, this time with Buffalo River, heat treated. I was going to try to finish this out, but I looked at it this morning and I'm kind of disappointed in the way that looks. So I don't want to finish this one out. Yeah. I'll finish this off camera. Yeah. Alright, so let's try getting something out of this clunky piece. Buffalo River. Let's see. I got some questions on Clovis already. It appears that our knowledge of Clovis is, in general, is not keeping up with the general archaeological knowledge. Yeah. What are some examples? I don't want to get into the specifics. I usually get the specifics a little bit wrong. But in general, there are many different ways that Clovises were made. And that's been shown over and over again. And there's more examples now as they discover more Clovis points in other areas. And they're reviewing the data more carefully now. But there seems to be an equal track where old information just gets regurgitated. So, whoops, oh, that broke. Uh-oh, my tufts, I broke it. Alright, let's go back to the other one. It did take the flake off though. Alright, so I usually don't cite studies and different archaeological papers on this channel, or any channel that I do, or anything that I do. That's not what that's not the purpose of the channel, right? So I don't even pretend to be an expert or cite studies and all that. I'm just telling you, it appears that there's still a lot of misconceptions and internet culture, I should say, surrounding Clovis manufacture. Yeah. The Gault site is a good site to study. The Gault, G-A-U-L-T. The Gault site in Texas. And there's a book on the Gault site in Texas. I have that book. And there are preforms, Clovis preforms, detailed in that book. It has data on the sizes of various stages of manufacture of the, the blanks and the preforms. But no one seems to have picked up on any of that. And that book was written a long time ago. And they've got even more data nowadays. Yeah, a Clovis preform is huge compared to the finished product. If you want to do it like they did it on the Gault site. Okay. Now there's various ways to do the Clovis. Yeah, so it's not always with large preforms. But there seems to be an internet culture that says, no, Clovises were made everywhere in a certain way. Everywhere. Especially when it comes to making the flutes, right? There's this internet culture where you have to isolate the platform at the base and then run the flute. There is a few artifacts with that isolated platform in the base, but that's not how All of them were made. There's evidence that they ran, for example, several thinning flakes, not just one, on Clovis points. Some Clovis don't have those thinning flakes from the base. Yeah. They call those plain view. But they're actually Clovis. Right? If it's from the Clovis era. So, don't pay attention to... My advice is don't pay attention to internet culture when it comes to the Clovis stuff. Is my channel internet culture? Your channel's part of internet culture, dude. Yeah, but I'm telling you not to pay attention to internet culture. Don't take my word for it. Don't trust my word for it. Look into it. Yeah, but didn't they... There's some channels that show jigs that you can make... That you can build around the stone or put the stone in a jig and then... You know, like with 2 sticks and then flute it that way. Wrap it around with bindings and all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah, there's just... That's what they call experimental archaeology. There's no evidence of that. We don't have the 2-stick with bindings method in the archaeological record. It's just one way to do it. That, you know, it can be done that way. And the way I do it is just one way that it can be done. Doesn't mean that it was done that way. I shouldn't even worry about what the internet culture says about how to make Clovis points. Yeah. I shouldn't even worry about it. The way I make Clovis points is I do the thinning flakes first and then I finish the rest of it. It makes it much easier. Especially if I got to make more than one Clovis point. I can't spend all week on one point. Trying to come up with a perfect Clovis and spend a whole week just to make one point and a bunch of mishaps. So to reduce the chance of failure, a lot of times I just nap around the fluted area. Yeah. Instead of waiting till the end to put the flute on there. Now you can wait till the end to put the flute on there. A lot of professional nappers do it that way so that the flute is very distinct and very noticeable and very pretty. But if you look at real Clovis points, they're not all perfect and pretty and exactly the same on both sides. Only the 1% of the 1% of Clovises are like that in the archaeological record. And those probably were not used because the maker says, you know, this Clovis turned out so perfect, I don't want to use it. Let's just save it as a special gift for somebody. Yeah. So it never got used. As an example of one possibility. Okay? It's a possibility. This flakes pretty easily, so it's going to be a little easier than that Flint River. This is a heat treat. Now, is there evidence that some Clovises were made with heat treat? I think there is. I'm not sure if it's the Hog-Eye site. But yeah, I think there is evidence that some of the Clovises were made with heat treat. But it's very hard to tell, especially if the heat treat is at low temperature, so it's only partially heated. You know, it's not heated to such an extent that it becomes really, really glossy. It's just heated just enough to make it a little bit easier to nap. As an example, not all stones get glossy. Don't want you to be under the wrong impression. Not all stones get glossy and waxy when you heat treat, but they often do get easier to nap. Alright, so the important thing about doing the Clovis preform is to get it nice and even, smooth surfaced. Makes it much easier to do everything. And I think the existing Clovis preforms and blanks are well balanced. You know, they might be a little wonky, but they're not really wonky. Like, I've got artifacts that look like preforms and bifaces that are really wonky. But I've got mostly archaic period artifacts, not paleo artifacts. Yeah. This is an issue right there. Can't have that. I'll probably just wait until after I do the thinning flakes from the base first, before I mess with this. Because what if the thinning flakes don't work out? Don't want to spend too much time messing with other stuff. Important thing is the thinning flakes from the base, because apparently Clovis considered those extremely important. That's the distinguishing feature on Clovis, is the thinning flakes from the base. Other than the outside shape, you know, for the unfluted Clovis, it has the general outside shape as well, and you know, ground down sides and stuff. Not all of the Clovis makers considered the flutes important, however, right? Some didn't even bother with them. Or maybe they were thinking of putting in flutes, but they didn't because it ended up being thin enough without the thinning flakes. Maybe. Maybe that was the reason. I think most Clovises were made base first. And that, you know, general strategy continued for a long time. This is a little bit narrow. Oh well. I'd rather have it a little bit wider. It's stronger when it's wider. I'm getting a little worried about the crunchiness of this stuff. It's probably going to leave a nice crunchy thinning flake, which I don't want. All right, let's see. There's two ways of doing this. You take 2 flakes first and then one up the middle, or just take one in the middle and then 2 flakes afterwards. See, you know, and just progress from there. I'd like to try the first thinning flake in the middle first, just to see how well it goes. Looks like it'll go pretty good. As long as I don't make the flutes longer than that. Yeah, it should hold together. Now, some people, when you put the isolated platform in the base, some people call that a nipple or whatever, but it's an isolated platform. You don't need to call it anything special. And isolated platforms can be put anywhere. The base, the side, the tip. You can isolate platforms anywhere. All it is an isolated platform. That's it. I don't like isolated platforms all that much because it just gives you one shot. And that's it. I'd rather have a continuous platform across the whole thing. But sometimes it's, depending on the material, sometimes it's advantageous to put in an isolated platform. It just depends on how the material is reacting. Maybe it needs a very special, very robust place. I don't always find it more effective to isolate the platform. Yeah, I find it more effective to create a continuous platform. That one went pretty good. Let's see. And I don't need a stick. I don't need sticks or a jig or anything. It just needs to have robust thickness to it. Now, when it gets thin, that's when you run into some problems. Yeah. Now, Clovises were thick. If you look at the artifacts, or you can buy casts of Clovis points, most of them are thick. Now, some of them are thin, yes. I've seen a really thin and narrow Clovis, but the flutes aren't very long on that one. I'm going to try to get rid of that step fracture because I'm going to take another flake. I don't want it to stop. So what I'm doing here is just doing a little damage control on that, and then I'm going to take that step fracture out, do damage control on that. But I gotta be careful not to get too thin doing the damage control. I can get thin doing the thinning flakes from the base, but doing the damage control, I don't want to be doing the thinning at that stage. It makes it too weak, and it's too much of a chance for that flake to dive in. The flute flakes, if the whole piece is weak. Okay. right, so I still want to take that out. Yeah. Let's see. How do I remove that without ruining it? I don't have a good approach because right here is kind of crunchy. Yeah, if I get rid of that crunchiness, I could try to reach it. Ah, some of it reached. Still got to get that part out. Or do I? It'd probably be best, yeah. Flatten it as much as possible. Yeah. Okay. To me, it's just my opinion, but it looks like a lot of Clovises were finished out with indirect percussion with just pressure flaking on the edges to finish up. I mean, how should I say this? I used the word finished twice. The Clovises were shaped with indirect percussion with very little pressure. Because it looks like the pressure flaking didn't interfere too much with the bold flaking, which tells me that it's possible they were using percussion mainly. You know, you can use direct percussion. Isolating a platform does help with direct percussion. So if you isolate that platform and then take a a piece of antler or something and then hit it like that, that helps a lot because it becomes a no-brainer. The only place you can hit is the platform. If it's continuous, it's harder to make an accurate strike right where you want. If it's isolated, it's a kind of a no-brainer. If you miss, you miss it. Nothing happens. If you hit it, it's hitting on the platform, so you're basically hitting in the right spot with no choice. Yeah, it limits the ability to miss. You can still smash and crush the platform and have nothing happen, but it's harder to be accurate with a direct percussion. So I think that's maybe why they don't use continuous platforms too much. You know, I could do it like this, but I could be off either way. If I isolate it, if I'm off on that side or off to that side, it's not going to hit the platform exactly right. It'll just nick off the corner of the platform or something. I can still try it again. It works even better with a flat, because with a flat, you've got a lot of area that it'll hit exactly the same way. Okay? When you have a flat spot on your hammerstone or antler and you do it this way, it's even more of a no-brainer. You don't have to hit it exactly on the top of the dome. Although, you know, this can vary, but this cannot vary that much with direct percussion in an isolated platform. But since I've got accuracy with indirect, I don't need to worry too much about isolating it. Yeah, I just need to make sure it's robust. Yeah, it's still too thick. So it's just a process of whittling it down. Just like on the sides, you know, you keep shooting flakes and more flakes until it whittles down to the right thickness. In Clovis, they like the sides to be thick and the middle to be thin. Yeah. And the best way to do that is with, you know, big old thinning flakes in the middle, like this, rather than from the side. Yeah. We're getting there slowly. You might say, well, isn't it smarter just to get it set up to do one attempt on each side? That's it? Well, yeah, if you do a bunch of these, you can start to get used to it, and you don't have to try so many times to get it done, but it requires a little bit of practice. Yeah, it would be faster and probably smarter to do only one strike per side, but I've only been getting back into Clovis for a few days now. The more I do, the easier they get. The less flaking I need to do. That sort of thing. So it'd be better because then it doesn't lose length. Yeah, I know. That's part of what it means to practice and get better. I know. I haven't practiced and got better. I see it's starting to dive a little bit. That's not good. Yeah, but you can put it in a jig and it won't dive. Well, you don't know that for sure because, you know, I've seen guys use jigs and then they unwrap really carefully and hopefully it didn't break. It'll break in the jig too, so, you know, get over it. Yeah. Probably only need one more attempt to get it thin enough. Yeah. Probably just one more attempt should do it on this side. I want to limit these videos to 30 minutes, so let me cut the time out. It's 27 or 28 minutes. Let me cut the time, or let me cut this video off at this time, and then I'll finish it on the next segment. All right?